Peace and Black Power family. Welcome to another Sarnetta TV House of Consciousness production. As you can see, I stand here with Dr. Boyce Watkins. Beautiful event. The first question I have for you, brother. First, I would like for you to introduce yourself because we can't assume everybody know who we are. You know what I'm saying?
All right. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World out of Louisville, Kentucky, birthplace of the great Muhammad Ali. I am here in New York as part of the Dr. Boyce Watkins Black Economic Empowerment Tour. We're going around the world telling black people how to find strength through economic unity, also strength through economic understanding, economic action, and all the things that we can do to free ourselves from these corporate plantations that exist out here to control us.
Beautiful. The first question I have for you is, how did you get involved in all of this stuff, dealing with information on YouTube? You know, you have a huge following and you bringing this information to the people. How did it all start? I know you've been doing this before YouTube. But how did this all start, sir? Talk about that.
Well, you know, I'll tell you what, I see the internet as a great opportunity. I mean, this is the first time in human history that black people have been able to talk to each other in real time without a filter, without somebody's permission. So this is a great opportunity to share information. So to me, all relevant scholars need to be on deck for that. You know, forget hiding in the ivory tower. You need to be getting back with your people. You know, when it comes to media has been used to control us. We need to take over media. So in my mind, I said, well, the internet is going to be hard work, but if you can put together enough of a network, you can reach, you know, quite a few black folks, just through various forms of social media or email, whatever. So that was the strategy, man. You know, it's just really taking what I did in the classroom and just trying to create a bigger classroom, and that's been the goal.
Right. And I have a question also. Has not always we've been negatively impacted by our inability to network and build multi-layered foundations? Just like with the Wall Street, we had it, the structure, but a force came in and took it away from us. Are all allegiances or all alliances available, or are they some that are still off limits? And I ask, you know, because I noticed the first expert you used, wonderful production, the opening, but there was one expert that was immediate and throughout all. He's a very controversial figure. So I was wondering, why would he have such a prominent role in what I thought to be an excellent production?
Oh, which expert?
This is the gentleman Monaco, Cleo Monaco.
Cleo Monaco.
Do you feel he's somewhat of a controversial figure?
I mean, controversy doesn't bother me.
Okay.
You know, because if we disagree, that don't mean I can't talk to you.
Okay.
In fact, I learn more from talking to people I disagree with than I learn from talking to people who already think like me.
Right.
You know, we just carbon copies of it. You know what I mean?
Which I can totally respect that process. But now, at one point, that's why I asked, what allegiances, what alliances? Is there not some fundamental things that cannot be part of a revolutionary mindset for people that may be very well marked for genocide? So can we even toy with the idea of bringing the homosexual base into a revolutionary mindset or structure? Can we really be that laissez-faire about it?
Well, you know what's funny? I'm gonna tell you my opinion on stuff like that. I just don't really care what other people do in the bedroom. You know, I don't. You know what I mean? I ain't never kept up with what another man does with his penis. You know, and so. In fact, now that you bring that up, I didn't even think about that. Really? You know, yeah, I didn't. Now, if we had a different conversation about that topic, then I have the liberty and the right to remove myself from the discussion, or to just say, you know, my opinion is different from yours, and I'm gonna have to respect you. Now, whether they reciprocate, I don't know, but I don't talk to him about that. Okay. I talk to him about black people, you know, strengthening ourselves, psychology, etc. You know, so. I guess if we have that conversation, we deal with it.
Then it might go
but yeah.
Yes, and then lastly, and I want the pill to come right in. Just lastly, the last question about that is so. One minute. I should have actually caught that. So just lastly, and I got to turn it over to the pill. You know, I edit. When I put together production, so again, and I thought you were in on the production too. When you use someone as prominent, people make automatic alliances, especially with people seeing imagery is so important. So that's why I thank you for answering that. I respect your answer. So that was the first thing that came to me. Pill, I know you have a bunch of other questions.
Peace, brother. Brother Red Pill, know the ledge. We live in this age of entrepreneurship. This is now known as the age of the entrepreneur. And I've been following your program. I've been following your story for some time. I love the work that you and Dame Dash are doing. I remember you saying that you were in corporate America before. I believe you were in the school system. Yeah, and now you're basically on, you decided to take it on an independent route as an entrepreneur and to spread that good news to the family. What I want to know from you, or just some advice for our viewing audience, because a lot of brothers and sisters are somewhat in transition, or they have one foot in corporate America, one foot out, they want to find a way out. Can you give us some advice in this age of entrepreneurship? What is some of the tools and some of the resources that are available to the brothers and sisters that are 9 to 5 in it, so they could take their skills and talents and go on their own and build their own businesses?
Well, that's an excellent question. Number one, I would say don't do it by yourself. If you imagine trying to leave the plantation back in 1802, is it easier to run off by yourself when you don't know where you're going, you don't know where to get the food, you don't know how to get shelter, or is it better when you have a network of people that can help you with that? When you're leaving with a group of people, maybe you can go to a village. Maybe you got the Underground Railroad to help you out. In a village, you got people with different skills, so you can help each other survive. Because escaping is one thing. Survival after you escape that's the hard part. So freedom always has a cost, and not all of us are prepared to pay that cost. So my recommendation is find a group of people who think like you, who are determined to leave, and just have faith that together you can succeed, together you can survive. That's the first step. Second step is, when I wanted to think like an entrepreneur, I started hanging out with people who were good entrepreneurs. I started learning how to see the world as an entrepreneur sees it. You see, it's like an animal who's been in a zoo, learning how to be free, how to hunt. Right? He ain't gonna be able to hunt it first. He's gonna be fat, slow, sloppy. His eyesight ain't as good because he ain't got to look for the food. But if he's committed to that transition and he's hanging out with hunters, it's gonna be stressful at first, right? But eventually he'll be a little slimmer. You know what I mean? His eyesight will be good. He'll know how to find out where the food's at. So
back into his true nature.
Right, there you go.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's your true nature. Your true nature is free. Your true nature is not in a cage. You know what I mean? Like, that animal was born in the cage, but he's not supposed to be in that cage, but he has to be out of the cage to even know this. So those are some recommendations. Hang with other free people who are committed to learning how to hunt, and you'll learn how to hunt too.
Real quick, I just want to clarify this for anybody who may have some form of confusion. Are you saying that the corporate American structure, the AK 9 to 5, the just over broke, would that be comparative to slavery, or they call it the plantation? So is that seen as a place where people who are naturally free thinkers become domesticated and compromised?
Yes, because people think to be a slave that you have to be unpaid. That's not true. Slavery is a lack of freedom. Yes. When you can't do what you want to do. So we have a lot of very wealthy slaves in this country. Slavery doesn't have to be what we saw, say, in 1705, but there are varying forms of slavery. And freedom versus slavery, it's a continuum. It's not a dichotomy. It's not It's not an on-off switch. It's not like either you're a slave or you're free. Most of us are somewhere on the spectrum. You see what I mean? And so if freedom is down here, the goal is to just move down the spectrum. It's hard to be 100% free, where you do whatever you want, whenever you want. But there are varying degrees of freedom that many of us have and don't have. Okay, almost ready.
Okay, quick question. I know you have to leave. When I was watching the documentary, I read the book, The Tulsa Race Riots, and I know we're calling it a massacre, which is most appropriate. Now, in the book that I read, Dick Rowland and Sarah Page had a romantic relationship prior to what occurred on the elevator.
Yes.
And they were having a contentious relationship at that time. And after the massacre, they continued communicating with one another. And I think that's something that needs to be known as well. So I just wanted to, I guess, share that, and you could elaborate on it as much as you need to with a little bit of time that you have, but I think it's an important point.
Well, number one, I'll say I'm glad you brought that up. That I did not know. The part about after, I didn't know that, so thank you. But what I will say is that a whole lot of brothers get a whole lot of trouble messing with white women, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't. I don't judge anybody's relationship, but I've never dated a white woman, and there's a reason for that. At the end of the day, there's no group of people that's more sort of protected, preserved, and worshipped than the white woman. And so that's why, for example, statistically, right, exactly, in this system, exactly. And that's why, you know, you look at incarceration rates, even when they commit the same crimes, you got white women's incarceration rate that high, black men is that high for the same crimes. You know, you see white women, especially some of these extreme feminists, they run around, they're narcissistic, very selfish, very whiny, me, my feelings, blah, 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 blah. And everybody hears all that because they're used to that. They're used to kind of being worshipped in that way. So when a white woman screams and said a black man did it to me, the whole world's going to go listening.
And not just that, I think it also has to be some sort of study done on the psyche of a person who will continue a relationship after such a thing happened. You understand?
Well, you know what? I'm gonna tell you. I tell my girls, love is tricky. You know, love is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. And if somebody, you know, I know when I was young, I did stupid things over love. You know, we all did, exactly. So I don't know how much of that is related to race in this particular case, but I'll tell you, love makes young people do a lot of dumb stuff.
Exactly. And thank you for being so kind with your time. And your chief second was getting ready to put all of us in the headline. She was patient too. Dr. Watkins, thank you so much. Thank you.
Know that when consumers are confident, they trust that their future is going to be good. So they spend money. When consumers spend money, businesses make money. When businesses make money, they hire more people, they make more investments. They go to the bank to get more loans, and the banks loan more money because they say businesses are doing well, consumers are spending, the economy builds up and takes off. Well, you can compare that to anything. Again, romantic relationships. If I trust that you're going to treat me well, then what am I going to do? I'm going to treat you as well as I can because I know that whatever I give you, you're going to give me more of that back. And I'm not scared anymore. I'm feeling good. I love like there is no tomorrow, right? Well, with black folks, economically, just like sometimes romantically, not everybody, but for many of us, there's a lack of trust. If you're a black consumer, you have to form a relationship with either black investors or with black businesses. And if you don't trust, then what's going to happen? You go up in a black-owned business, and number one, you're already skeptical because you're like, yeah, okay, I'm going to check this place out, right? You're being far more critical than you would be if you walk into Walmart or Target, right? Or McDonald's or wherever you go, right? And then the minute they mess up, what do some people do? Oh, see, that's why I don't go to black businesses because they don't have good customer service and they do this and they do that. You might have saw that the other day. I don't know if any of y'all saw it. A couple of you might have seen. I was on the Breakfast Club the other day. There's this show. It's a good show, and there's a guy on there. He's a funny guy named Charlemagne the God. That's his name. I don't know why he calls himself a god. I don't know, but whatever. And he's my homie. But when we started talking about supporting black business, he literally said, well, you know how black businesses do it. Black banks, they do this and they do that. And you know, in a respectful way, I kind of had to say, well, you know, you can't really generalize an entire group of people. There are thousands and thousands of black businesses out here. If you don't like what happens with one, you just go to another one, right? The idea of giving up on an entire race of people because of one bad business experience is really sheer lunacy. It doesn't make any sense. And in order for the economic interaction of black people to become more prosperous, in order for there to be more trade, in order for there to be prosperity, there must be trust. And the thing about trust, see, it's hard to trust. It's easy to lock everything up. It's easy to be hard, quote unquote hard, because then you're just protecting yourself from all things that could possibly hurt you, right? But real strength comes from the ability to trust and knowing that by trusting, you could get burned. You're opening yourself up. You're making yourself vulnerable. So I support black businesses and I hire black people all the time, even though I know that things happen, right? Things happen. So same thing is true. So if you understand dating and love, then you understand economics. A lot of these concepts are things you've understood since you were a child. Yes, sir.
How much did the film cost and what was the budget?
The film, see, that's a funny question you had. All right, the first version we did, actually that was the second version of that film that we did. And I'm just telling you guys this, but Yeah, remember, I told you, we don't know nothing about making movies or nothing. I ain't never done that before in my life, but I said, let's try it. I actually got inspiration from the brother, Gordon Parks, if you know his life, he just did everything. And I remember him saying, if you want to learn how to do something, just learn how to do it and do it. So when he wanted to learn how to make movies, he just did it. When he wanted to go and write a book, he just did it. When he wanted to go and learn how to play a certain instrument, he just did it. So anyway, we took the Gordon Parks model. We jumped in and said, okay, let's make this movie. And we hired some people to make the help us make the first version. They messed it up. It wasn't what I wanted it to be. I was very disappointed with what I saw. And so I went to Dorian because I know that she doesn't work at a certain caliber. And again, one black person didn't do the job right, so I went to another one, right? I didn't say, oh, all these blankety blanks ain't, you know what? I didn't do that, right? So we had to literally pay to get the movie made twice. So I would say total, but for us, this was a lot of money. Now, maybe compared to most films, it wasn't that much. But I would say we spent about $50,000 total to make it, over the course of time. And it wasn't easy because we don't really we're careful about who we take our money from, which everybody should be. See, one of the problems that black people have, one of the mistakes that we make is that a lot of times many of us are trained to take money from anybody who offers it. Well, if you understand how money works, the power of money, you know that most people don't give you money unless they want something back. And so the same way when I would talk to my daughters when they were teenagers, and I would say, don't take money from any boy, that because some of these dudes gonna want something for that money, So the same thing is true with running a business. We don't really. People might want to make donations, or people say, why don't you get a sponsorship, or why don't you sign up for this grant, or why don't you let this corporation sponsor you? And the thing is, if you understand money, you know that there's usually some sort of implicit or explicit trade that occurs that, if you're not careful, it can dilute what you're trying to do. So we try to finance everything ourselves. And the thing about being black, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna let you guys talk. I'm doing a lot of the yapping here, but the thing about being black and doing business, in my opinion, is that we have to be very creative in terms of structuring unique models for doing business and building business and financing business, because much of what we might learn in a business school just doesn't apply for us. For example, if you go to a business school and they say, well, if you want to start a business, go to a bank and get a bank loan, and then you can start your business. A lot of black folks I know can't get no loan. I mean, banks don't loan to black people. Every study shows that. So we have to find creative ways to raise that money. So, for example, Lamar Tyler, who runs Black and Married with Kids with his wife Ronnie, who's also the co-captain of that, they left the corporate plantation. They wanted to build a business focused solely on black love and marriage. And so a lot of people told them it wasn't going to work. They said black people don't want that. They want world star hip hop. That's what black people want online, which isn't true. We know that. And then on top of that, the title of their website is blackandmarriedwithkids.com. So that's a niche on top of a niche on top of a niche. So what are the odds that that's going to work? Well, let me tell you what Lamar did that was brilliant. Lamar actually is he's actually a visitor in our Black Wealth Bootcamp class, which you may want to take a look at. In fact, today, I think they're cutting the price by 33% if you want to join the next bootcamp. But you don't have to join, but I just want to make sure you guys know this. So Lamar, what he said was, two things he did. Number one, he took his entrepreneurial study as seriously as he took his study in college. You see, we are raised to know and to believe that going to college is something that many of us have in families where you feel like going to college is something you have to do to be successful in this economic system. And in many ways, college does give you that. Absolutely. I'm not saying that it doesn't. But what he did that was absolutely brilliant was he said, well, if I'm going to spend $80,000 going to college, I'm going to spend $20,000 to learn how to be an entrepreneur. So he didn't just go look for the free information. He was taking these $5,000 seminars, learning from people, not who knew how to teach him from a book, but people who actually knew how to make money on the internet, because he wanted to get his family off the plantation. And it wasn't just financial. He wanted to get off the plantation because I call it the corporate plantation. I'm sorry, I don't know that offends anybody, but that's how I feel. And he wanted to get off because he said, I was commuting so long every day, I didn't even get to see my kids. I saw them when they woke up in the morning and when they went to bed at night. That did not seem natural. And I said, it didn't seem natural because it wasn't natural. So anyway, when as they built their business, when they got to the point when they made the last film, here's what they did to raise money. They didn't go to a bank and try to explain to a bank why this movie was going to do well, or why they have 500,000 Facebook fans and the fans support everything they do. They couldn't translate that to a bank, so they didn't even try it. What they did though was they went to their fans, their supporters, and they said, we want to make this movie. Let us draw the picture for you. Let me show you what we want to do. And if you buy a copy of the film now, we'll take 25% off the price. And so people made pre-orders. And do you know that when they did this, they raised $110,000 to make that movie, and it only cost $20,000 to make. So they had locked in their profit before they shot a single reel of that film. That's where his entrepreneurial thinking came into play. He didn't do what I see a lot of filmmakers do. A lot of filmmakers, every day I hear from filmmakers and rappers. Every day I get 10 emails from somebody who wants me to share their music or share their film. And what a lot of them do, unfortunately, is they're either at a stage where they say, I want to make this movie and my budget is $1 trillion. Where do I get the money? Which grant do I apply for? Which sponsorship do I get? Who's going to give me this money, right? Or they've already made the movie, dumped all their life savings into it, and have no clue how they're going to get their money back. All they know is, well, I hope that some network, some white person comes along and buys it. And I'm not trying to make this totally racial, but most of these networks are owned by white folks. I made this thing, and I don't know what's going to happen with it. I hope that somebody buys it. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't happen, and they never get to make another movie because they run out of money. So ultimately, the ability to develop economic engines is probably the strongest thing that any black child in America can learn how to do, because understanding how that works allows you to survive when white folks ain't hiring, when people aren't giving you what you need to survive. I saw a couple hands go up, so yes, sir.
Can you elaborate more on the crowdfunding platforms, equity crowdfunding versus reward crowdfunding? Because what you were just saying was that the option that they utilized was basically to crowdfund, going amongst the crowd to bring about, to raise their budget and whatnot. So can you elaborate on equity crowdfunding?
Yeah, absolutely. And crowdfunding in general, crowdfunding is when the crowd comes together and everybody gives a little bit of money to something you're trying to do, and then you're able to get it done because you raise money that way. Many of you might know this, but that's what it is. We actually have a crowdfunding site called blackcrowdfunders.com that we started. And what the challenge I've seen with crowdfunding is that a lot of people that go into it either don't know exactly how to do it. They maybe think it's like a charitable thing. Like, I'm going to ask everybody to give me money and I just raise the money that way. That usually does not work. I haven't seen it work for a lot of people. Also, they don't always have the network that you need to really make that work. Like, we have about 300,000 or 400,000 people connected through social media, email, all that stuff. So we can crowdfund a little bit better. But a lot of times if you're just getting started, you don't have that. It's a little tougher to do. So what we do with Black Crowdfunders is we actually take the campaigns that people put up and we share them with our network. And we say, okay, hey, if you guys like this, what this person's doing, feel free to make a contribution. We're still trying to figure out exactly how that works, but we also have a crowdfunding expert as part of our team named Lene Javette, who literally teaches a class on how she set up her crowdfunding campaign. And she actually did it. She was a single mother who wanted to quit her job. She raised $10,000 online to quit her job and start her company, and that's how she did it. She did it through crowdfunding. But the big mistake that she made, and I'm actually going to get to the answer to that question, but I want to make sure I get the background. The mistake that she made was, I said, so what did you do? You got the $10,000. What did you do with that money? She said, I spent $8,600 on my website. And I said, whoa. I said, you do know you can get a website built for about $100, right? And so those are the little things that a lot of people may not know, and that's why it's very, very important that when you venture into this territory, that you talk to people who know what's going on. Sometimes it may cost you a little bit, but I wish when I first started that I could have spent a couple thousand learning how to do all this from somebody who knew what was going on, because I would have saved the next 40, 50,000 I spent learning things the hard way, learning things the wrong way. Okay, not just money, but time. You know, things that took me 3 or 4 years to learn. I had conversations with Lamar Tyler, Black and Married with Kids guy. I had conversations with him that literally saved me 5 years of work. I was like, man, I wouldn't have figured that out for years. You see, so talk to people who know what they're doing. Don't just try to figure it out by yourself, and don't learn from people who haven't done it. Now, going back to your question, equity-based crowdfunding, what is that? Well, you have rewards-based crowdfunding where basically people give rewards in exchange for the quote-unquote donation or whatever it is. So, for example, if I'm crowdfunding and I got books and T-shirts, stuff like that, I might say, hey, if you give me $10, I'll give you a copy of my book. You give me, you give us $30, we'll give you a book and a T-shirt. You make a big donation, and we got a film coming out. I'll let you be an executive producer. You can put your name on the film, and we can talk on the phone. I can share this other thing with you. So you got to figure out what resources you can offer. But also another good thing to do is you can sell things before you actually make them. So if you're making sneakers or something, let's say you want to manufacture sneakers, well, you sell your sneakers in advance to people who believe in the vision. But at that point, it really is a lot like a political campaign, right? President Obama had to sell people on the idea of him being president before he actually became president. So they would feel like they're giving money to something that would become real, as opposed to giving money to something that wouldn't become real. If they didn't think he was going to win, they wouldn't give him their money. So ultimately, equity-based crowdfunding is a little bit of a flip on that, where instead of getting a reward, you actually get a percentage of ownership. And that's a big game changer, because for a very long time, you couldn't just sell equity stakes in a business without approval from the Securities and Exchange Commission. Like, so for example, if I came in here and told y'all, hey everybody, I'm about to buy this building over here, and I'd like for everybody to give money, everybody will own a cut, I'll have all the documentation together so you know what you own, etc. Well, if I did that and enough people knew about it, I would be walking away in handcuffs. You see me on TV about to go to prison, because there are laws against selling equity. So equity-based crowdfunding has now made it legal as per certain regulations. Everybody just can't do it, but there's things you have to follow, rules you got to follow, but they're less complicated. So you actually can raise money by offering people a stake in what's actually going to be built. And I think that's really important. I think when you give money to something, I think that you should have a stake in that thing. You should have a stake, and not only should you have some sort of ownership or get something back for your money. Remember, I believe that trade always works better than charity, right? If I ask you for $10 and I say, well, give me $10, and you say, what am I going to get out of it? And I say, well, nothing. You get the thrill of knowing that you donated $10 to me. That's a tougher sell. But if I say, hey, give me $20, and you say, well, what's in it for me? I say, well, I'm going to give you $30 worth of merchandise. Then we both walk away feeling good. I don't have to feel like a charity case. I'm not a burden on you, and you don't have to feel like you'll carry me around like dead weight. And so, and generally speaking, also, if we're working together and you've made a purchase from me or a donation to something I'm doing or whatever the case may be, there's trust there, which means I do have some sort of obligation to you. If I have a project that I'm starting, I do have to have some degree of transparency. Now, that's been a very public conversation in the black community. I talked to Minister Farrakhan about that when we were out in Arizona. We had an economic summit with a few economists in a room with the minister. He's 82, but he has a lot of energy. He literally sat in that room for 10 straight hours, and there were 9 of us, and we were talking about economic strategies for the black community. And one of the things we talked about is the importance of accountability and transparency. When you collect people's money, you got to tell them what you're doing with that money. I had a disagreement with Umar Johnson about this, not because I dislike him, but because I said, hey, let me help you with this. If you're collecting hundreds of thousands of dollars from people and they ask you, where's my money? You owe them an answer. You can't say, get out of my face. No, this is not, demagoguery does not work for leadership. And again, I'm not trying to be critical of him. And so if you love him, I want you to always love him. But at the same time, anybody in a position that I'm in or he's in or anybody else is in, we are as every bit as accountable to you as you are to us. We owe you as much as you owe us. When you support us, I'm not the king. I am a servant. That is my role in this community, period. Now, I saw a hand go up over here. Yes, sister.
I just wanted to reiterate what we were talking about downstairs, because I think it's an important point in relation to the Tulsa race riots, which is that Sarah Page and Dick Rowland were in a romantic relationship, and it was contentious at the time when that event occurred in the elevator. And after the massacre, they stayed in communication with one another. I just think it's an important point, so I just wanted to reiterate it, even though
Yeah. I think it's a great point. What you mentioned, in case you don't remember, Dick Rowland is the brother that was on the elevator. Sarah Page was a white woman that he was accused of grabbing that led to the whole chaos that occurred afterward. And what she brought up is that those two continued to interact even after all this happened. And there isn't much else to say beyond that, except, you know, I don't know. My grandma would say, she would say, mess with them white women to get you in trouble. But I don't know. Make of it what you will. Make of it what you will. Yes, sir.
I had a question that kind of based on how you position the misunderstanding, disagreement with our good brother, Dr. Umar Johnson. I mean, there was a ripple through the conscious community because, you know, both of you are two of our most brilliant minds. So when you all had that battle, you know, they're like, what's going on? People were really torn. because they care, respect, and love you both. So in an instant like that, where leadership or two very, very rich brothers, mentally, spiritually, clash, could there not be a way they can reach out personally to each other? Because I think egos are always going to get frayed and fractured when there's a public condemnation. And I think that's a little kind of what you both got into. I don't know who started first, but it was like, whoa, why are they doing that? You know, because we need you both. I respect you both. But you're right is right. But I think sometimes we can call our brother or sister on the private side. So brother, you're brilliant, but you can do it better. And I think that often gets a better result. What would you think?
All I can give you is the truth, okay? That's all I can give you. And the number one truth, in case you don't know Umar Johnson, he's brilliant. He's one of the best orators of all time, in my opinion. The truth I can give you is that I called him probably 45 times. Texted him probably another 50 times, and never got a response ever, even before all that occurred. But that wasn't it. I wasn't offended that someone didn't get back because everybody's busy. Everybody's got stuff to do. In terms of what I told people, and I would say this 1,000 times, is that number one, a disagreement is not the end of the world. Maybe we have different perspectives. Maybe we have different ways of seeing what quote unquote black unity is supposed to look like. Isn't it funny? We're not even unified about what it means to be unified, right? But my point of view is that if you are supportive of some things that I do, your job is not to agree with everything I say. We don't have to be on the same page all the time. I want you to disagree with me when it's appropriate, and I'm okay with that. But maybe it's my academic background. In academia, for example, there's this thing that they claim to believe in called intellectual freedom, which says that all ideas should be laid on the table, and if your ideas are different from mine, I should learn from that as opposed to attack you because you don't see the world the way I do. And so in that quest to really get people to engage in critical thinking, I want people to be wide open in their perspectives, and tell me when I'm wrong, and I'm okay with that. I know you can love me, I can love you, even if I think you're dead wrong, or vice versa. So, and then the final point, in terms of picking sides, I never want anybody to pick sides. Why in the world would anybody feel like they have to choose between Umar and Boyce Watkins? Why would we choose between, thank you. Did we have to choose between Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali when they parted ways? No, we don't. We don't. When you talk about Malcolm and what happened with the Nation of Islam, I get messages all the time. Every time I say how much I love Minister Farrakhan, I'll get a message. Well, you know about Malcolm and this and that. Yeah, I read everything. And I'm open to all possibilities, okay? All of them. But that does not mean I can't love them both. Period. I'm not picking sides. You don't have to do that. So that's my point of view. In fact, to this day, if Umar called me today, I wouldn't reject him. I'd talk to him. I'd say, okay, let's figure this out. You're brilliant. I'm half of what you are. Maybe there's something good that we can do with the world, for the world. So I don't have any animosity, none whatsoever.
I just wanted to say this is one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. And I just graduated high school, so I want to know how do I put everything that I see in the movie, all this stuff that you said in the movie, how do I put that in my life if I can do everything you said and with everything? I just don't know how.
Well, the first thing you would do is, in my opinion, understand that as a black man, you've got a unique position in the world. The war was declared on you before you were born. There are so many people that literally want to exterminate you physically, mentally, spiritually, and every other way, economically, from the time you're a child. And so the fact that you made it this far and you've got your consciousness is a wonderful thing, because so many guys have already been misled by the time they reach your age. So when you go to war, you have to be ready to fight. You have to be ready to compete. Always be ready to compete. Never believe this stuff about us living in a colorblind post-racial society, because that's nonsense. That's not true. Every indicator says that's not true. So the most important thing a young black man can do in this country, and tell this to anybody who has a son, they got to understand this, especially or if you have a relative who's in prison. Every black man in America must learn the fundamentals of starting his own business. He must learn that before he ever learns how to dribble a basketball, throw a football, sing, dance, rap, act. all these other things that he's trained to do in this society. You learn how to start your own business because that's your fallback option in the event that people are not hiring. You should never ever not be able to take care of yourself because people are not giving you a job, right? And why is that important? Well, because your ability to provide as a man is one of the most critical determinants of your masculinity in this society. Ain't no black woman gonna be able to look up to you if you can't provide and protect, period. And she don't want to hear no excuses like, oh, but a white man ain't hiring. I apply for every job. I'm begging for every job I can get, and he ain't letting me in. Ain't nobody gonna want to hear all that stuff. So you have to be able to be a man. You got to find creative ways to provide for yourself. So the bottom line is that in order for a black man to be a king, you must learn how to build a castle. Got it? Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Fine. How are you?
When I saw that you said that we should be donating 2 to 7% to Black organizations outside of our churches, what kind of organizations, and is there a curated list of trusted organizations we should be donating to? The second part of this question is there a personal finance model that you suggest that we follow in terms of how we're allocating our income?
A personal finance model?
That you suggest that we follow in terms of how we allocate our income and our retirement accounts and save our cash. And lastly, do you think that marriage in the Black community and bringing that together is important to our economic success in joining our resources?
Oof, those are a lot of questions. It's like a final exam. Huh?
You need an energy bar before you answer.
I know, right? I need another drink of water. Okay. So let's go back to the first question again. Organizations. First of all, I would say that the cost model was built kind of as a framework to kind of just give people a general idea of what it would take to kind of develop cooperative economic systems. Excuse me. A cooperative economic system is one in which money circulates the same way air circulates in a room. If you imagine an air conditioner in a small room, excuse me, my throat, then the air comes in from the outside, and imagine if the air's coming in, it keeps the room cool, and you leave the window open. Well, if you do that, then the air's going to go out, and you need the air to keep coming in order to stay cool, right? And that's what happens when you open the door to giving your money away to other people. So when you get your check and you go straight to the mall, you're basically circulating your money right outside of your community. You can't do that. You got to eventually shut the window. That's how you save energy, right? So basically the cost model was kind of designed to kind of say, okay, these are some principles that we can follow that will allow us to practice cooperative economics as a fundamental part of our culture. So in terms of the C, the first part of the cost model is C, which stands for contribute. And again, this was my recommendation that we contribute 2 to 7% of our income to Black institutions outside of our church. You give money to the pastor, but then you also give money to the things you believe in. That means every $100, 2 to 7 of those dollars goes towards something you believe in. And so in terms of where you do your charity, I don't think it always has to be a specific organization. A lot of us have charity that happens right around us. Right, if you're doing well, you're one of the few people in your family doing well. You have charitable organizations, you have charitable scenarios right there in your own family. I think you can count that within your charity. Or as far as picking which organization to give money to, I don't think that's so much my job. I really believe that in your community, you see what's out there, right? You see the Little League team that needs money. You see the community center that might need money. You see other things. And I think that what's really more important is developing as part of your economic culture, just an attitude toward giving and supporting, understanding the importance of your role. You see, you can't have what in economics we call it the free rider effect, where nobody does anything because everybody thinks somebody else is going to do it. Right? If everybody thinks that somebody else is going to do it, then nobody does it. Right? So ultimately, we have to understand that we have to do something. All of us, I give $1, $2, that's very, very important. My role in sustaining my own institutions is critical because a lot of Black institutions get bought out for 2 reasons. 1, because they take money from anybody who offers it. And number 2, because we have been trained to believe we are a charity case. We have been trained to believe that our institutions will only survive if somebody else is paying the bills. And that's very, very dangerous because that's how the NAACP gets bought out in so many different cities. You saw Donald Sterling, the owner of the Clippers, who was a racist, was able to basically buy himself an NAACP award. And that's what, in fact, any corporation that wants to commit racist acts, in their business, all they have to do is make big enough donations to the NAACP, and that's how they call off the dogs. It happens all over the country. Anybody else? One more question, then I'll go downstairs and sign some books, and then we'll come back up and finish up. Yes, ma'am.
I think one of the important things that I noticed in the video of the movie is, I think what it reminds me of when I grew up. The black community was very supportive of the black community. Black people were a team, and you saw that in the Oklahoma Black Wall Street, where black community supported black businesses. I can think back as a child that I can even think of a particular family when the oldest went to college, Grambling State University, got her teaching or her education degree. Then the next sister. And those two, that one helped the one sister. Those two helped the next sister. Those three helped the youngest brother. And so it becomes a question of, well, how do we support the black community? Part of it is with financial, as you just got through saying, the financial investment into the black community and the black culture that helps us to expand and to grow and to become powerful yet again. Absolutely. I agree. I mean, I think that we don't really need any more wealthy black people. I think we got plenty of those. We don't need any more educated black people. We've got a lot of that too. What we need are wealthy and educated black people who actually care about the black community. Having power only means something if you've thought carefully about what you're going to do with that power. Right? So, for example, if my relatives call me and say, I'm hungry, we're hungry, Boyce, we don't have any food, and I say, that's okay, I got $10,000 in the bank, I'm gonna go buy these other people across town something to eat, right? That's not gonna make them feel better, right? They're not going to applaud and say, oh, well, look, Boyce is feeding everybody. That's so great. They're gonna say, why are you not feeding the people that actually matter? So when we get all of these credentials, these PhDs and JDs and BAs and BSs and all these other levels, what are we doing with that power? You get that important corporate position with that fancy title, you call your mama, say, Mama, I made it. What are you doing with that power? If you're not applying it to your own people, your own community, then it really kind of dissipates. It really doesn't matter a whole lot. And that was a realization I had to come to when I was at Syracuse University, babysitting rich white kids every day. Not that I didn't love the kids, I loved them. But I said, wait a minute, something ain't right about this. Everybody's telling me I've made these great contributions to the black community, that I'm so successful. Well, why do I not feel successful, right?
I wanted to ask the question, just examine, even from what we're being presented with the title, Resurrecting Black Wall Street. I would suggest whenever you attempt to resurrect something, you need to examine what caused it to fall in the first place. So we had incredible resourcefulness. Our money was going this magical 7, 8, 10, it was never leaving the community. But to resurrect it, if we get it again, how will we keep it? Or is our defense always connected to the hip of the very same system that's been trying to demolish us since we got here? So if you don't have your own military wing that someone else will respectfully say, you know what, I'm not going to roll up in there, then can you ever build that here? So are we back to an Elijah Muhammad, a chain of thought, separate societies? Or are we going to keep it together like it apparently is going to be? If that flip, that switch, these people are saying good morning, good afternoon to each other. They had a relatively good relationship. And on this soil, these are the same people that comfortably hung bodies up on trees, set them on fire. So this is not really personal enough for us. I mean, they murdered us at that time. So we just have to represent that from a place. So do you have that in your plan that once we get it, how will we keep it? this time?
Well, number one, in terms of my plan and my ideas, I don't know every answer to every question. I'll say that first and foremost. But what I will say is that when you think about something like that, we have to ask ourselves, is 2016 the same as 1921, right? Could they do the same thing now that they did back then? I don't know. You can decide for yourself. I also believe that it should never, and I'm not saying you're suggesting this at all, but I don't believe that we should ever allow the fact that there will be retaliation to stop us from fighting in the first place. You know that when you stand up to the bully's going to punch you back, and he's going to punch you hard. But you can't be scared to hit the bully because you're afraid he's going to hit you back. They're going to hit you back, right? We've already had 4 Holocausts in America, in this country. I mean, everybody talks about what happens to the Jews in World War II, which was horrible. But we had the Middle Passage. We had 150 years of slavery. We had 250 years, excuse me. We had 100 years of Jim Crow. We had 40 to 50 years of mass incarceration. 4 Holocausts. Don't think they're not working on the 5th, right? They are. And one thing that I've learned from observing the Jewish community is that they see their ownership of business, their accumulation of wealth, as one of the protective mechanisms to keep another Holocaust from occurring. Will that work? I don't know, but I know that they own Hollywood, so they can make sure they tell their story about who they are, as opposed to somebody else doing that. That's one of the reasons they own the media, they own banks, things like that. So ultimately, what I would say is that we still have to build. What you said about the military wing is something that should be laid on the table. I would let experts kind of handle that, et cetera, because I do pay attention to what the Nation of Islam does in my home city of Chicago, where they can go into places that the police can't really go. I also think that as people of color, we really have to understand the importance of understanding that we're part of a global community. A lot of the reason that you struggle so much in America is because your mind and your body stays in America. You can do business around the world. There are places you can go around the world where you won't be persecuted as badly as you might be here. There's a reason the Jews left Germany. They didn't stay in Germany and say, we want to prosper under the swastika. They left Germany to find a place that was more inviting for their people, right? So for many of us, we have to get over that fear of interacting with the global community. There are many, many great opportunities all around the world. They don't just exist around the corner. So I think that doing that allows you to diversify and spread out a little bit, so that when the retaliation occurs, which it will, we live in a competitive global economic society. People will fight dirty to take your stuff. If you don't train your kids to protect their wealth, believe me, somebody across town is training their kids to take your child's wealth. Understand this, the competition won't go away. But I've never seen a basketball game where the other team cheers for you because you scored enough points to win the championship. And that's what we have to get over, because again, as we're being trained to believe we are a charity case, that we're incredibly vulnerable, that we're just weak and passive and we can't stand up, we can't do anything for ourselves, they've also kind of taught us that silly things like that we can really beg and request equality. That we can actually, just because that we can receive certain benefits in this society just because it's the right thing to do. And if you know anything about America, if you know anything about how white folks have operated, even with each other, not just with us, they don't really give you stuff just because it's the right thing to do. You have to fight for it. You have to command that respect. So that's my thinking. I'm gonna go sign a few books for you guys, and if you want to take a picture or something like that, let's do that, and then we can do a little short intermission, and then we can finish up. I'd like to bring up the director and Mr. Andre Hatchett, so we can kind of have a little panel discussion, so we can make sure we get something out of this. So I hope that's okay with you guys. I'll talk to you in a second. Thank you, man. Is this where I was signed? You got a Sharpie for me? Oh, downstairs? Oh, okay. Okay, then I'll go. Okay. Hey, I'm gonna go downstairs.